Peace to everybody. This is about Jussie Smollett refuses Chicago's 130,000 demand. Subtly threatens to file defamation lawsuit against the city. And as you can see here in the picture is Jussie Smollett. Jussie Smollett will not have the city of Chicago sully his good name. The Empire Star's lawyer fired off an angry letter in response to the Windy City, sending the actor a bill to recover the $130,000 it costs to investigate the hate crime he has been accused of making up. So Jussie Smollett's lawyer fired back at him with an angry letter that the city of Chicago has sent Jussie, and they want their $130,000. But also it costs to investigate the hate crime that he's been accused of making up. I don't believe anything the city of Chicago has to say because they're a bunch of liars. The Chicago Tribune are liars too. They switch words around that are not true. As we reported, the bill was sent as part of a city ordinance in which those who file false claims can be fined up to 3 times the amount of damages the city sustains. Smollett missed the payment deadline, and now city officials have confirmed they plan on filing a lawsuit to get the money from him. Well, the city of Chicago can file lawsuits all they want. Jussie is not going to pay one single penny to that city whatsoever. I wouldn't even pay a penny to that city either. And also the bill was sent as part of a city ordinance. Really, in which those who file false claims. Now, come on. Jussie is not going to pay one penny to that city of Chicago. The deadline came and passed, and he didn't even pay a dime for it. I wouldn't even pay a dime to them either. But the 36-year-old isn't planning on paying a dime. In fact, he might very well file a lawsuit of his own against the city for what his team claims are attempts to defame him. So Jussie may just take matters into his own hands and file the lawsuit himself against the city of Chicago. And since the city and his team claims are attempts to defame him, and I don't blame him. I would be filing a whole bunch of lawsuits too. In the letter, attorney Mark Garregos said Jussie will not be intimidated by Chi-Town's legal threat. He called the claims that his client faked the attack because he was dissatisfied with his Empire's salary false and defamatory. I never heard Jussie Smollett saying that he was not happy with his salary when he was working for Empire. Not once have I ever heard that coming out of his mouth. And here the city of Chicago is claiming that he was using that as an excuse and to get attention and that. I don't believe that one bit at all. And of course the police department are still claiming that he faked the attack. I'm not buying it. I don't believe it. I don't even care what the city of Chicago have to say. Garregos also maintained Jussie's initial claims that he was the victim of an attack by 2 people shouting racist and homophobic slurs. So that Garregos also made Jussie's initial claims, which Jussie was called racist and homophobic slurs. And, there's a lot of hate going on in this country right now, but, people really need to wake the freak up and get over it. Move on with your life and stop all this hate against one another. We're supposed to unite, not tear each other apart. After Chicago police investigated the actor's initial report and apparently spent over $130,000 to do so, Smollett was charged with 16 felony counts of disorderly conduct for allegedly paying the Osandaro brothers to stage the attack on him. Of course, the city of Chicago police had investigated the actor's initial report, and they spent over $130,000. And of course, Jussie was charged with 16 felony counts of disorderly conduct for allegedly paying the Osandero brothers to stage the attack on him. I don't believe it at all. But in a surprise twist, Cook County prosecutors abruptly dropped all charges against Smollett in a hearing last week, enraging the city police department mayor Rahm Emanuel, who basically everyone who was following the case on Twitter. Well, I didn't know that part was on Twitter, so I had no idea about that part. But Rahm Emanuel, you can't trust him either because he's an idiot himself. He didn't care about the city of Chicago. He's just as crooked as the police department is. The city issued the bill to Smollett 2 days after the hearing, warning that they might sue him if he didn't pay by Thursday. Well, like I said, the deadline came and went already, so there's no way that he was going to pay them. And of course, he didn't pay a dime to them. Why should he pay a dime to something that he is not going to do it to? I mean, who cares what the police department want? Who cares what the city of Chicago want? They're not going to get a dime out of him. If the city does file suit, Garrigo's warned in his letter that Smollett's legal team would demand to view all the evidence from the case, including the evidence that was never handed over to defense before the charges were dropped. So yeah, if the city does decide to file the lawsuit, that Garrigo's warned in his letter that Smollett's legal team would have to demand all the evidence, to view every single piece of evidence that there is, including the evidence that was never handed over to defense. So either way, the city of Chicago is screwed up. So they're not gonna. If I were the city of Chicago, I'd back off real quick and not bother with this lawsuit. Garrigo's also insisted that Smollett's team would have questioned Mayor Emanuel and Police Superintendent Eddie Johnson, and the city moves forward with the lawsuit writing. In light of their apparent vested interest in the matter, we are confident that Mayor Emanuel and Superintendent Johnson will not object to providing their testimony under oath. Mr. Smollett's preference remains, however, that this matter be closed and that he be allowed to move on with his life. So they're going to want to question Rahm Emanuel and Eddie Johnson, and you know those two are going to lie their asses off, and they won't even give a damn. Because, you know, the city of Chicago is corrupted. They're hiding every single thing that you could think of. And and they're not letting Jussie move on with his life like he wants to. They're just going to keep putting their foot in his neck until Jussie only thinks he's going to crack and tell them everything, but he's not going to. Jussie wants to move on with his life and not deal with this. The letter went on to state that Smollett's attorneys would also want to take down a sworn testimony from the Orsandaro brothers, their attorney and their attorney's husband. So, yeah, they're going to also want to question the Orsandaro brothers as well on a town sworn testimony. and their attorney and their attorney's husband. So all the way around, the city of Chicago is going to be all screwed no matter what. The Emanuel administration, meanwhile, confirmed that a lawsuit was being drafted for Jussie in Cook County Circuit Court as of Thursday. Only time will tell if the state backs down from this possible defamation lawsuit, but we doubt it. So if I were the city of Chicago, I'd back down real quick and not go forward with this lawsuit like they want to against Jussie, because the Emanuel administration, well, they're definitely crooked. Rahm Emanuel never did nothing good for the city of Chicago. All he did was do everything corruptedly, and that's what the city of Chicago is, corrupted. Come on, really? Chicago, you better back off with this defamation lawsuit, because it's the best if you do. Jussie is going to want to file a lawsuit against the city himself if they don't back down off of him. And Jussie's trying hard as he can to move forward with his life, but the way Eddie Johnson and Rahm Emanuel are just attacking him like crazy, they're never going to let him go. And Jussie's going to get really frustrated no matter what. Leave your comments below. I am out.